We are good to go. Okay, so share the screen. Okay, perfect. All right then, so today we are going to focus on coaching communication. So for those that weren't with us last week, don't worry. We're going to have a quick recap within what we are going to be coaching. So this is going to be more practically based around your training sessions and what you will be coaching. But the emphasis for today and the most important thing is to understand that communication is the highest order and priority of football. So communication is the interaction between both teams, either verbally or non-verbally. So let's begin. Okay, so communication and the team tactics. So the interaction, as mentioned before, is 1 versus 1 with a goalkeeper. So I've put plus the goalkeeper. The communication is really important because without it, we can't make decisions. And without making decisions, we can't execute decisions, which is why communication is of the highest order within the interaction. So communication, the interaction between the teams and the players. Decision-making, the decisions being made by the players based off the interactions of both teams, game moments and game principles. And then the execution decision, how the decisions will be executed based off the decisions being made by the players. Based off this activity here, guys, what do you think that the decisions will be made within this 1v1 and the goalkeeper? Within this activity, what decisions will be being made? So feel free to unmute yourself and have a go.
The player with the ball will be driving to open space, and the player defending will be trying to take away that space.
Superb. Yeah. And who was that answered that?
RJ or Robert.
RJ, superb. Yeah. I could not have said any better. Player with the ball is driving forwards into the space to score. Player without the ball is going to try and take away the space to stop the other player scoring. So that's the decision that's going to be made. So RJ, thank you. RJ, if you feel comfortable, maybe you can continue. So how will those players be executing both those decisions?
Based on, most likely, because it's one-on-one, it'll be all off of physical cues as opposed to verbal cues. So they'll be reading what each other are doing, trying to anticipate it.
Yeah, superb. So if the player with the ball, so let's just further your example here, RJ. If the player with the ball takes a touch to their left, what would the execution be from the player without the ball?
They'll also probably scooch to their right, basically, but also while trying to remain in between the ball and the goal.
Fantastic. Yeah, so that's how they would execute the decision, and that in itself would be pressing. Based off the player with the ball. So let's say the decision with the player without the ball, they have backed off, okay? So they are protecting the space in front of the goal. That's their decision. What might that then allow the player with the ball? How might they then execute their decision?
If the defensive player backs off, then that gives the offensive player more space to move right or left around that.
Mm-hmm. And then with more space, what would they be able to do? What action may they be able to do? Shoot. Yeah, exactly. So based off the decision of the defender, the defender's backed off. They're protecting the space. The attacking player has taken the space and in turn has the space now. They have more space and time to shoot. So RJ, I can't thank you enough for your answer. It was an excellent one. You've allowed us there to look at the interaction of communication, decision-making, and execution decision. Anybody have any questions on that before we move on? Okay. Sorry.
No, I have a question regarding decisions and so on and so forth, but sometimes your decision is just reacting to what the other player has has done, right? Because, for example, here the defensive player has reacted, has made a decision, but based on the previous decision. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely correct. Well, that actually brings us onto a slightly deeper level. Is this conscious or is this unconscious behavior when we're talking about coaching or observing what we're seeing?
In terms of the players making these decisions, or we teaching the players what kind of decision?
Well, and who's answering this? Sorry, again, I can't see because my presentation.
Luca?
Yes, Luca. Okay, so Luca, you are a step ahead of us here. So we are talking about this, and we want to be able to consciously teach this, right? But the players, by putting them in this activity, are they consciously thinking about this, or is this unconscious?
I think they learn based on the result of the exercise.
Correct. Yeah.
The first time they try, they might not do things consciously, but the second, third time, they might actually figure out where they need to go almost on their own.
Yeah. So you are spot on, Luca. Go on, keep going. Sorry.
And then maybe at the beginning, the decision is conscious, but the more you practice, this becomes automatic. It becomes a scheme, basically something that you don't even think about. It's like riding a bicycle.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, so we'll use your bicycle example, Gianluca. So when we are practicing this 1v1 activity, or when we're on our bicycle, at the beginning, it's just unconscious. You would agree with that, right? We're just doing it. We're not really thinking about it. We're just doing it. But then all of a sudden, we fall off our bicycle, and our parent says to us, well, what would you have done differently there? Or why did you fall off and suddenly we are thinking, not unconsciously anymore, but consciously. And this is where the role of the coach comes in. So when the stoppage occurs and you say to Sarah, or you say to Jimmy, hey, we didn't score very many goals there. Why do you think that was? And they may start to think, well, I didn't go into the space, or I didn't find where the goal was, or shoot. And then this is where the coach becomes very important, because they are making the players consciously think about the decisions that they've been making and their execution decision too. So that's a really nice little segue, Lucas. So thank you for that. In terms of how we would then teach this, the unconscious process of the players training, from then the coach consciously making them aware of the decisions they've made. So that was a really nice little analogy there. Okay, guys, anyone else before we move on? Okay, perfect. So to summarize, the communication, it's the interaction. The decision-making is creating. We have won the ball back where we have an opportunity to score, move the ball away from the opponent, and the execution of the decision, driving into the open space, scoring in the corners of the goal. Okay, next stage. 3v3. Communication is 3v3. Decision-making and execution decision now. So based off what we've just talked about there, within this 3v3 activity, what is going to occur within the decisions now? What has been taken away more in this activity? I think someone wants to come into the space. Yeah, space. So there is now, to your point, there is now less space. So with less space, we have less opportunity to score. So within the decision-making box, I'll click onto where the yellow is here. Within the decision-making box, why do you think that it's listed A, B, C, D, and E?
Those are all decisions that the person with the ball needs to make.
Correct. But yeah, so with the ball and then without the ball as well. So why is create depth and width? Why is that at the top?
Because you want to spread the defense out to get more space between the defenders and the goal.
Okay, super. So great answer. So we've created depth and we've created width to have more space. Now, why is score at the top? Obvious question, but why is it at the top?
That's the ultimate goal.
Ultimate goal. We want to score. Assist to score is the next best thing we could do. Play to the open player. If we can't do either of those, move the ball away from the opponent, then play backwards to restart the opportunity to score. So the priority within attacking and the priority within creating within the team tactical principle, or the game principle within creating, is to score the goal. Now, how we do that, those decisions, they need to be structured so that we have an idea of how we are going to try and score. And then lastly, within that, passing to the correct foot, driving into the open space, receiving on the correct foot, and scoring in the corners of the goal. Those are ways that we can become more successful at executing those decisions. So how we have refined our decisions is essentially how we're going to execute them. Because decision making, if playing forwards, that does not mean we have to pass. That could be dribble as well. But how that decision is then executed is based off the opposition and then the interaction between our team as well. And finally, 3v3+1, because we have added a goalkeeper in there. So there's now 3 outfield players. There is less space. There is less time. So then, again, the priorities must be looked at from the context of what Robert has said there. If we can't score, what must we be able to then do? But the priority within attacking, we must create depth and width. Decisions and executions will be based off that. Okay, guys, before we move on, any questions so far? Okay, perfect. Let's go. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Now, based on my first experience last week in the first training session, the problem with kids at this age is basically just keeping them in one place. Not even. Are we going to get to a point where there's going to be some suggestions on, what's the best way? What's the first thing to do? Because in my experience, even trying to get one of these exercises done, the problem was just to put them in one place in groups of 3 or 4, and just establishing a little bit. I wouldn't call it discipline or anything, but just a little bit of order. This is a bit meta, but.
Well, you are absolutely correct, Luca. The problem is, though, is that because you guys have the best job in the world of working with the youngest kids, it also requires the most patience as well. Because we'll get to this towards the end. But, okay, as an example, a 3v3 activity could still be pretty tough for really small kids. So a solution to that is to maybe just do 2v2 or 1v1. And when they start getting good at 1v1 and 2v2, the numbers can be increased because then they start to understand the interaction a little bit more. So my recommendation would always be, we must look at the problem and then see how we can simplify the problem for the players. If they then start to understand it, we then make it more difficult again. So, okay, the 3v3 activity, it's too tough. Let's make it 2v2. Or based off what we just spoken about there, the 3v3 activity is really difficult. Instead of reducing the numbers, what else could we do?
Increase the space, maybe.
Yeah, fantastic. Increase the space. Or if you want them to have more success within, let's say, creating, what else could you do? Increase the space and then increase what else?
I don't have an answer. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, just to be clear, Luca, you are killing it with your answers, and you're really promoting fantastic discussion here. So I'm asking because you're really making us all think. So thank you for that. The reason that I said what else could we do is that not only could we increase the space, but for opportunity of success, we could add goals in as well. So that then plays into, let's say, the profile, the characteristics for these young ages. how to make the training session more fun, how to make sure that there's more success there, increase the amount of goals that we have, whether that's cone goals, poke goals, an end line or an end zone for them to get across. These are different ways of allowing different opportunities for these kids to become more successful. Did that answer the question, Gianluca?
Yes, it does. And it's kind of two, I would say, problems, but two things. The first one is sort of keeping a little bit of order during the exercise, and second, keeping the exercise fun and not boring. And it's difficult to keep the attention for more than 10, 15 seconds. So that's
it's very difficult. I get it. I get it. It's not easy at all, but hopefully those in terms of solutions can be useful. Because obviously with these kids, that, to your point, the most important thing is to keep their engagement, to keep it going. But yeah, good stuff. I enjoyed that. It was a good, again, another good avenue for discussion. Okay, so number one, coach the structure, aka the most important things. So based off what we just talked about with Gianluca's point there, even if it's 2v2 and we're trying to go forwards towards the goal or the goals or the end zone, whatever it may be, with the ball, make sure there's as much space as possible, within creating depth and width, with the ball, with space and time, driving forwards, with opportunity to pass. Make sure that when we are coaching the most important things. So my example of this is, we'll go back and use, I don't know where we get these names from, but Sarah or Jimmy, when we're coaching them, if they, if they're trying to do the right things, like they're trying to dribble and trying to pass, but they kick it too far, or they dribble out of bounds, that's okay. They are trying. So that's where the patience piece would come in. But let's say Sarah or Jimmy are dribbling towards their own goal and they're intentionally not making very good decisions. That's when we would say, hey, look, this is what we are doing. We're attacking. We're trying to go towards the goal. Make sure that they understand the very basics of the game principles of what we're trying to do. And then to Gianluca's point, we talk about, getting the structure, and discipline's okay. I have no problem with that. Once the structure, is established, coach the end objective and then work backwards. So what we were talking about with Robert there, and the objectives that we're trying to implement, score is the number one objective. We can't score. What do we do next? So the example to this in here of what I've written is, don't coach passing for the sake of passing. If there's space and time, drive forward to go and score. That's the end objective. We can't do that. Coach the team to score, but use passing as a means of doing so. So always start with what the end objective is in mind. So before we move on, guys, any questions on this? Okay, perfect. Okay, so guys, what white team focus? So the team in white on the screen. What are the problems currently? I'll open the floor to you guys. What are the current problems for the team in white?
Spacing.
Spacing, fantastic. Who was answering that, sorry?
This is Rebecca.
Rebecca, thank you. And Rebecca, what specifically is the problem with the spacing?
We have two kids all the way on one side of the field right next to each other, and then one kid all the way on the other side of the field. So, yeah, the two kids on the left are far away from the ball and too close to each other.
Yeah, perfect. Rebecca, you're the coach. We're talking about the communication. What can we do to improve the interaction and the communication for the team in white?
So we have to encourage, well, so you said their goal is to get to the goal. So encourage that they think about helping the player with the ball, but also being in a good position to get a pass. Okay,
perfect. So your answers are absolutely correct. For us to be able, though, to establish a reference of doing that, what were the priorities within the decision-making when we looked at them before? So we mentioned something before score, and what was that?
Oh, depth and... I'm sorry.
Depth and width. Yeah, exactly.
Width.
Why depth first and not width?
Because you're trying to score.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, you're absolutely right. So we're trying to score. So depth is most important because the goal is where?
Well, right now the goal's far away.
It is, but it's not on the sides where the width is, right?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
So based off our analogy we've created there, what shape can we create to have better structure within our team?
Shape, like a triangle?
We could, but with the 4 players that we have, how can we have depth and width and utilize all the players?
Well, I guess that's a diamond.
Diamond, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So no depth and no width. That's the problem. Solutions, to your point, Rebecca, create depth and width to have more space, and then in turn, be better positioned to make better decisions, create chances to score. So already there, we've created a diamond. So now we have more space, and we're closer to the goal to be able to score. Okay, next one. So the white team focus again. So what are the problems? So the black team have the ball. The white team are defending. What is the problem for the white team now?
There's an open player.
There's an open player. Okay. What are the other problems? And that's spot on, by the way, just to be clear. It's a great answer. there is an open player. So along with that, what are the other problems?
The white team is too spread out.
Correct. So attacking, what do we say the priorities were for attacking to be more successful? Create what to start with?
Depth and width.
Correct. Okay. So what is the solution for the white team now? They don't have the ball.
They want to take away space in the middle of the field.
Yep. Okay, so take away what? You are correct. Space in the middle of the field. But instead of creating depth and width, take away.
Take away depth and width?
Yeah. So have not taken away depth, have not taken away width. Perfect. White team focus for the solution. Take away depth and width to have more space and be better positioned to make better decisions, which in this case would be win ball back and stop the opponent scoring. Okay, so almost some FAQs that we've gone over from the past week and after speaking with a couple of people. So they don't get it. You're right. And Gianluca, and this is why it was important, he raised the point, lack of focus, lack of discipline. Yeah, I get it. This is a difficult job because they have such little focus because they're kids. And that's where they're at when they're aged. They're there. They want to have fun. They want to have a great time. So let's not forget about that. But also for your sanity, to be patient with them as well. So most breakdowns occur from poor levels of communication interaction. So if you can't define the problem, you can't solve it, which is why what we've been doing there shows how you guys are high-level coaches because you understand the problems and you're able to solve them. But if they can't kick a ball, why does this matter? Another very valid point. So kids will always be able to continue developing their execution as this will become more refined over the years. So if you guys can think back to your playing days, whether that is playing, football, soccer, or American football, basketball, hockey, whatever it may be, the way that you execute your decisions in those team tactical sports, it always got better because it always became more refined. But if you had a better game insight or understanding of the interaction, you probably were better than most kids the older you got as well. So you cannot play catch up on communication interaction, which is why we always start with that so the kids understand that as well. Any questions on this before we move on?
This is Gianluca. I wanted to clarify something. First, you just put on slide what I meant before, which is they just don't get it. But also at the same time, I kind of understand that they're at the age they are, and my point was, what can we do, or what can I do better to communicate in terms of stop or getting their attention, or
Yeah, so my solution, look, this is not going to be helpful, so I apologize for my answer, but it's the truth, which is why it's important to say it and to hear it, is that patience is the key with it. They might not get it after 6 months, but after a year they will do. And that is not just, me just saying that. That's from my experience and working with kids of this age as well, that the penny does not drop, I would say, for a while. Now, the really special players, it does quickly because they get it. But if you can keep doing this and keep layering this information for them, when it does drop, it will be so easy for them. It goes for anything they're learning as well, right? We don't necessarily expect them to understand mathematics or being able to read and write immediately. But once they understand the references and the basic references of what we are trying to coach, it will come quicker for them. So my answer is to be patient with them. Keep putting them in small side activities. Keep harping on or coaching the basic levels of decision making based off the interaction. And then, like I said in here, that it will become more refined as they do it. So yeah, I would say patience is the key, and to be consistent as a coach with that as well. Is that useful, Gianluca, or is that making you want to strangle me through the computer?
No, that's very useful, and I have no experience in teaching per se or in coaching either, and so this is more about the way that I approach the problem than about the kids itself. So I'm the one that needs to change, not the kids themselves. So
well, hearing you say that does not make me think that you're someone that's never coached before, because I admire your approach to it, and your questions are very intelligent. So it's surprising for me to hear that is the case, that you haven't coached. So good on you, as they say. All right, guys. Anyone else on questions on this? Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is my example to relate it back to different professions, slightly more extreme examples, but I think it's useful when you'll see the reference why. Anyone want to have a guess at why this has been put up here?
Showing the importance of communication.
True. Yep. So all require communication. There's another reason behind it, which that is true. But what all do these? I'll give you guys a clue. What all do these professions require before these people go into them?
Oh, training.
Training. Yeah, training. And within that training, so we'll use that. So you got it. Who was that, by the way, that answered it? Rebecca, spot on. So Rebecca, spot on with training, medical school, buds, the bar, culinary school. So the reason I put this in here is creativity is allowed to flow once a reference has been established. So the reason that, let's say, a doctor can be the very best doctor they could be, or the Navy SEAL, the lawyer, or the chef, they are able to be creative within their jobs, but they're always creative within a clear reference. It's obviously the same for our players. A lot of the time, I talk about this, and people, in all honesty, will say, well, it's very reference, it's very rigid. Well, the references of what we want to teach are rigid, because those are the most absolute and objective, pieces of information we have about our sport. There's attacking, defending, and transitioning, and there's game principles within it. So once we've established that, and we teach within those boundaries, but we never take away the creativity, because how you dribble or how you pass is what? It's execution, right? So how the execution is carried out is the creativity, or the decision making is the creativity. But there always must be a reference for us to base our creativity within. So our coach here. So What's their reference? A football model, aka game moments and principles, football actions theory, communication, decision making, and execution of decision. Again, creativity is allowed to flow once a reference has been established. Okay, any questions, guys? We flew through that today because of you guys and your excellent answers. Anyone have any thoughts, feelings, questions about your training sessions this week or application, anything like that?
I haven't really had a chance to look at what we're training this week, but last week I would say the 1v1 worked really well with the kids, at least my group.
Fantastic.
Really seemed to get it and kind of did well with it. And again, it was probably my running of it error, but the promotion, demotion, 1v1 across the goal line kind of thing, like that was just chaos. Like the balls were going into other people's courts, and it was just and the kids weren't really keeping track of who was scoring and who wasn't, and so it was that one did not work so well for me. But the other one with the soccer move, like dribbling up halfway, soccer move, defender come out to try to take away the time and space, that worked really well.
Good. I'm glad. Well, just based off your assessment there, Robert, I would say that maybe a solution is for the next time you have to do that training session is just to use the 1v1 activity, but just take away the cone the next time. So they go from in isolation to doing a move to just taking the cone away and just going 1v1. So that may be a solution to your your carnage. It's all carnage. Don't worry at that age.
Yeah, and I mean, I think because I had set up 2 little fields, like for the scrimmage, I used that for the 1v1 drill, like with the soccer move, whereas I then tried to compress, like, I think the whole team onto like one field more or less and go width-wise, and I think there just wasn't enough space, I think, for them.
Yeah, well, that's a great bit of reflection on it as well. So I think what you've done there, Robert, is really important, is to reflect on what happened and then maybe why it happened as well. And that's something that is super important for all coaches of all abilities and levels, is that they can reflect on why what happened. If you can do that, I think you'll be very successful. So that's a great bit of reflection. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else, guys?
This is Hillary. After last week, or our first game, the field they were not creating any space for themselves, right? And so I'm wondering if there's something you'd recommend to practice that, to kind of force them apart a little bit. Both teams just became clusters pretty quickly. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if it's just me.
No, I can't hear.
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Maybe he can hear us.
No.
I still can't hear you.
Bye.
Not yet. No.
Says he's muted, I think.
Now there we go. Perfect. Hillary, I'm sorry to answer your question about the spacing. So within the play phases of the session, if you do 3v3 or 4v4, we talked about create a diamond or create a triangle. That's such a simple reference for the kids. And if you keep saying it within the training sessions and within the games, hey, we have the ball, create a big triangle or a big diamond. Hey, without the ball now, make a small diamond, make a small triangle, take away the space. That's a really simple way to create a reference for those kids to then be able to, to understand what the structure is with and without the ball. So that would be my solution, is to use shapes. And they understand that as well at young ages, triangles, diamonds, whatever it may be. That would be my my bit of feedback for that. Was that useful?
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Perfect.
You may have said that last week and I missed it. So yeah, that totally helps. Thank you.
Great. And honestly, you sound really silly when you just keep repeating yourself, triangles, diamonds, but it does work. And it's good for them, because then they are able to be creative in it. Because once they establish that and then they have more space to play, it's useful. So you will get sick of saying triangles or diamonds.
Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else, guys? Whilst I have you.
To follow up on Robert and Hillary, I had the same issues both during training and during the game. So I expect that this is pretty common, and it's useful to get sort of answers for common issues.
Yeah, perfect. It's like a big book of FAQs, right? So I think it's useful doing this at the end, because everybody then realizes they have the same problems, especially with spacing or maintaining one space or maintaining some sort of shape. That's what I mean. Once they have the shape, the decisions start to become easier as well, because they have created more space and then they can see these things for themselves. And then naturally it becomes a process where they learn. And also as well, one useful tip and technique, it's like even as adults, right? When we're told to do something and there's no explanation to why it is, often you get your back up, you're like, well, why the time? But if you tell the kids the reason behind it, or ask them, why do you think we have a diamond, or why do you think we have a triangle, then the learning experience for them becomes richer, because they then, can we talk about conscious understanding? Their conscious understanding of what they're doing, it makes sense, opposed to Coach Robert or Coach Gianluca, Coach Hillary, they keep saying diamond. I'm sick of it, But they honestly will appreciate the why behind it. So that's another key towards getting the information across, is giving them a why.
I had during the game, it's kind of related to the training session as well, but I had a very silly issue where the kids would just leave the field because they would go and get some water and so on and so forth. But that got better with time, and I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I mean, the more they get used to it as well, because at this age, it's a lot of the time as well, it's just learning to train. Once they learn to train and they learn to turn up and they know it's a training session or a practice, they tend to be much better, because they know sort of what the expectation is. So I wouldn't worry about that. I've heard stranger things, if that helps.
Okay.
All right, guys. Any other questions I can help with?
Could I ask one more?
Yes, of course, Hillary, of course.
So we've been trying to balance. We have a whole bunch of kids who've never played or even really watched soccer before, and so there's so many new things that they have to know. These are third graders, so that they're even required in the game to know, corner kicks and throw-ins, and we're trying to balance how much time we're spending on that versus, some of the kind of what you've been talking about. Does it make sense, or have folks had success just asking kids to watch soccer, like actually as sort of assigning, getting them more exposed either by watching other kids' games or watching on TV or something? Because it just feels like for some of them, we're asking them to like become a fan, like they don't have a visual reference for what we're even talking about because they haven't spent time watching it.
For sure. So what I would say is that would be the second thing that I would always ask kids to do, is to go and watch it and engage them. Maybe you can just, a really fun way is like set a homework project for them. Don't call it homework, but just ask them or ask the parents to go and do it. Is to go watch a game. There's loads of games on the TV, Just go and say who's your favorite player, who's your favorite team, stuff like that's really useful for them. But the other one, the most important one, it seems so obvious, is just to play more games, right? But look, you said there's throw-ins at 3rd grade, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
I would just play small-sided games every time the ball goes out. Throw in, just practice it.
Yeah.
Just do that, or like you can just enforce is the wrong word. You can utilize the rules of your game within a 3v3 game, and that way it becomes slightly easier as well. So if it goes out for a corner, just play a corner.
Right.
And play a throw, but just make it 3v3 or even 2v2 as well. So that's one way of doing it.
Okay. Thanks.
Perfect, no problem. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for jumping on today. Absolutely loved talking with you all and working with you. Yeah, it was great fun. So thank you so much, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Guys, bye-bye.
Bye.